Oral Saunders, good morning to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Comrade Sister. It's indeed a pleasure to be here with you, and it's a pleasure to address the membership of the PSA. Today is a great day. As I was on my way to the studio this morning, I recognized the anxiety on the faces of so many parents, and on behalf of myself and my family, and of course my other comrades throughout the PSA, we would like to take this opportunity to wish everyone Godspeed and for them to relax. It's a time to relax and celebrate. I know some persons may be disappointed, but trusting God that even in disappointment there's a way He worked things out.
Very true, very true. And do you know anybody who wrote essay or any?
Yes, I know quite a few young persons, and I know they are eager, especially their parents. I mean, many of our members, their relatives or their children have written the exam, and I know everyone at this point in time is really in anticipation because they expect to go to a school that they feel comforted that their children will achieve the best that they can.
I think sometimes to pressure, the pressure that parents put on children, it doesn't augur too well, because you find children, the whole idea of my school is better than your school.
Yes.
I was listening to somebody, I think it would have been a fellow reporter, Akash, and he said, a school is just made up of stone, concrete blocks. At the end of the day, students, they all start with one empty notebook, and it's what you put in that counts.
Yes, well, I guess, Akash could look at it from that point of view, but, because of the socio-economic conditions that pervade, people see things much differently than he may at this time.
So I hope that, parents don't add too much pressure on your kids. I mean, you may be disappointed, but just to let them know it, because
this is just another step in the learning curve and in their development, and parents need to be supportive of their children in the good times and in the bad times. And sometimes you may be disappointed, and sometimes it's time for celebration. But what, I would think that the amount of preparations that went into these children writing the exam, that is the thing that parents should take consolation. And I always try to maintain the 5 P's perspective that proper planning prevents poor performance.
Oh, I like
that. So if it is persons have applied themselves, well, then we could look forward to some positive results and a lot of smiling faces in a little while.
I do hope so. I really do hope so.
Yes, definitely.
So tell me a little bit about your stint here at the PSA, and you've been one of the long-standing members of the PSA.
Yes, I have. But even before I go on, let me just take this opportunity to thank Comrade Kova, the second Vice President, who would have given me the opportunity to present myself this morning. I know persons looking on may very much be adjusting their phones, adjusting their computers. Is this Oral Saunders?
Is this him? Yeah.
Yes, it is Comrade Oral Saunders. Very few things have changed, but at the end of the day, we are focused, and we are all in support of building the Public Services Association. I always hold firm that the public service is part of the governance structure of Trinidad and Tobago, the same way that you have the government on one side, the opposition on the other side. At the end of the day, you need public officers to actually implement the policies that the government and opposition would agree on or disagree on in certain instances. So we are here in good and bad times. I came into the public service actually on the 2nd of December 1992. Quite a long time. I came in as an enrolled nursing assistant, and I eventually was attached to the St. Anne's Hospital. I continued to function there, and I have really been an activist in the PSA in my entire life. I started off as an ordinary member, and within a year I became the chairman of the St. Anne's Hospital section. Moving on from there, I became the youth officer of the PSA. I became the chairman of the male caucus. I moved on to being a grievance officer, and what most persons would remember is my assumption of the post of the general secretary. And well, that was a short stint, but at the end of the day, I am PSA.
You embody it. You really do. And speaking of the Nursing Council,
Yes.
Some important times ahead of us?
Definitely, you know, I am thankful for the opportunity for me to really address this issue because many nurses in Trinidad and Tobago would have been disappointed to have looked forward to voting in an election which was supposed to have ended last Monday, being the 24th of June, and to date unable to do so. Several inconsistencies, several issues I have recognized have, you know, reared its ugly head. But, you know, even before we go into that, probably I should take this opportunity to really explain to persons the importance of the role of the Nursing Council.
Yeah.
And the Nursing Council, and I'm reading from the amendment to the Act, so you know exactly what I'm reading. And it says here, in the exercise of the functions under Section 3A of the Nurses and Midwives Act, the Council shall have the power to A, register or enroll nursing assistants and nursing personnel, issue certificates or licenses to nursing personnel, cancel certificates or revoke licenses where applicable of nursing personnel, suspend or place conditions on the license to practice, set standards for education and practice of nursing and midwifery in consultation with the Accreditation Council of Trinidad and Tobago, examine applicants as a prerequisite to initial registration, verify the authenticity of certificates and other documents in support of applications under this Act, establish such committees as are necessary for the discharge and of the functions of the Council, and collect monies and or fees required to be paid under this Act. So it's quite a vast role that the Nursing Council of Trinidad and Tobago really performs.
I'm seeing you have here the Act is amended by repealing Section 4 and substituting the following sections.
Yes, well, what had happened previously, prior to this amendment coming into effect, the Nursing Council would have comprised of 22 individuals.
Okay.
Now, this Act was amended in 2014 by the former Honorable Minister of Health. And what he had recognized after receiving several complaints is that the persons who comprise the Nursing Council, one, it was too large. Two, persons who were mandated to function in the positions, some of them showed very little interest and attended few meetings. And there were a litany of complaints in terms of students who would have sat their exams and so forth. And they would have spent many years, because to become a nurse at present, if it is you're doing the degree program,
difficult.
it's 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's a long period. It's a large sacrifice. So the minister had to come up with some amendments to really reflect today's challenges and the challenges that lie ahead on behalf of nursing personnel throughout Trinidad and Tobago. So coming out of this review that he would have done, he decided that 6 persons would basically be appointed from on the minister's side. That is the Minister of Health.
Yeah.
An attorney of law, a person with qualifications and experience in nursing administration, a person with qualifications and experience as a nursing educator, a person registered under this Act nominated by the Tobago House of Assembly,
Interesting.
a representative of the minister, and a member of the public who is not an advanced practice nurse, midwife, nurse, or nursing assistant. Those are the persons that the minister is responsible for appointing.
And is that the case?
Well, there is a body that is functioning in the positions, but we are going forward to where the nurses themselves represent themselves, and those were the first group of persons that would now constitute the Nursing Council. The other persons are as follows. 5 nurses will be elected from among their own number by the person who are registered as nurses under this Act at the date of election. And those 5 persons simply mean those staff nurses, registered nurses. You go to the hospitals and you see persons in white, but we are differentiated based on our qualifications and our experiences of such. So the staff nurses, they would have 5 representatives. 1 person elected from among their own number by the persons who are registered as midwives under this Act. Midwives, obviously, you know who are midwives, so they would have 1 representative. 2 persons elected from among their own number by the persons who are registered as mental health nurses under this act. 2 RMNs, those are psychiatric nurses. And for the first time, we have the inclusion under this act, when this act was implemented or reviewed, an enrolled nursing assistant. So although there were 22 persons who formally controlled the nursing council, no one from amongst the body of nursing assistants, enrolled nursing assistants, was privy or capable, or I don't know, well, I wouldn't say capable, but I would say was allowed to be a part of that council. So we are extremely thankful that the act was amended to facilitate such.
And when is elections?
Well, the elections, as I said previously, it was
ended.
supposed to have ended this last Monday,
When
the
you say
24th.
supposed to have ended, I mean...
It is a serious situation, because
talk to me about that.
well, what I can tell you, I am a candidate in the election for the post of the representative for the enrolled nursing assistants.
Okay.
And my experience has not been a good one in terms of how this election has been rolled out.
And this is the first time they were going to have...
No, this is the second time. The first time there is a current representative representing the enrolled nursing assistants, and many persons aren't even aware of this person. So, you know, I was approached by many staff nurses as well of my colleagues, enrolled nursing assistants. Oral, we need you to go down there and find out what is going on. We need to have a voice, we need professional development, we need to find out what programs the Nursing Council can, if at all, put in place for the advancement of enrolled nursing assistants. I was a bit apprehensive initially because, as I said before, fortunately or unfortunately for me, persons always associate myself, from the time they see me, they associate myself with the PSA. And this is an opportunity to come out of that area and really give representation on behalf of my colleagues. Now, I still believe it is an important part in terms of our union, because many of the enrolled nursing assistants and nurses, etc., they are members of the PSA. So therefore, although the PSA does not have a say at the council, it is really important that the PSA has their persons or their representatives there, so that we could ensure that the executive of the PSA is fully aware of what is taking place, and that our membership, who have been crying out for lack of information, would be informed of what is taking place at the level of the Nursing Council. So hence my reason for getting involved in the election in the first place. Now, when I submitted my nomination papers, I was not informed by anyone that it was accepted in the first instance. I was not given a mandate or a remit in terms of what are the do's and the don'ts of the election. I was not informed of whether there was an elections officer or an elections committee. And sadly, even to this date, although the election was supposed to have completed last Monday, I am still unaware.
I just have 2 questions.
Sure.
Why and how?
I agree. And this is one of, you know, the concerns that we have, because how could you be conducting an election?
And you don't have guidelines.
You have no guidelines.
You have no correspondence.
You have no correspondence. And you don't
accepted.
even know who are the persons in charge of the elections. My information is, and it's not official, but my information, I've been informed that there is actually an elections committee. I do not know how it was constituted.
Okay.
Because I would think that, for example, if I were to read from our document, which is our rules. Now, I don't expect the Nursing Council really and truly to have such an in-depth document.
At least not yet.
Not yet, but it should be in the making.
Yes.
Because this is really the PSA's terms of reference in terms of elections. So that any person who is participating in any elections in the PSA has this to refer to. So if it is there any ambiguities, it's reduced because of this document.
Bible.
Right. And if it is, we were to look at, you know, just the first page in the PSA's rules for our elections, it says that the conference or the General Council shall have the authority to fix the date for the national elections at least 90 days before the date on which the said elections are to be held, and either the General Council or the conference shall at the same meeting at which the election date is decided upon, or as soon as possible thereafter, not being later than 80 days, before the date fixed for the elections, appoint A, an elections officer, B, an elections committee of 9 persons, not counting the elections officer, and C, a special elections officer. So off the bat, the PSA in its document has already, created that roadmap.
Stated this is what will happen. Yeah.
So that, as I said before, anyone who is engaged would know what are the terms of reference. I am in the dark, to say the very least. Other candidates who are participating in these elections have also called on me and complained bitterly about how this election is being conducted. And I'm not here to cast any aspersions on anyone at all, because I wouldn't want to bring the PSA or myself into disrepute. However, much is desired. And if it is we are to conduct a fair election, then the rules of engagement must be stated. I am supposed to be, and so as well as other candidates, we must be aware of who the election committee is, who they are, sorry, and how they were chosen, how that committee was constituted.
And what is their job?
What is their job? We must know what is the budget allocation for the Nursing Council's committee. But most importantly, we are of the opinion that the incumbents are not supposed to have control over the Nursing Council during this election period. And that is something that we are not 100% certain of. Because if there is a committee, then that committee must have sole responsibility for the conduct of the elections for the nurses.
Yeah, because I mean, if they're not, in my opinion, they're non-existent at this point, then who's going to oversee the elections, the actual process?
Yes, and that is one of the fundamental reasons why we believe the elections continues to be delayed. In fact, the first period was supposed to have ended on the 10th of June. And I saw in the newspaper, the only thing that I have ever seen from the Nursing Council during this period is an advertisement stating that the period has been expanded, or extended I should say, from the 17th to the 24th of June. And that persons will be receiving their ballot papers in the mail, and that ballot boxes will be strategically placed at the major health institutions in the country, throughout the country, Trinidad and Tobago. I can say with a sense of urgency and sadness all wrapped up in one, that up to the 24th, there was no ballot box in St. Anne's Hospital, Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex, Tobago, and I could go on and on and on. So clearly, something went wrong.
Something is wrong.
Something went wrong. Because, as I said before, there was an ad placed in the newspapers sharing the information in terms of where the ballot boxes will be, the fact that persons will be receiving their ballots in the mail, because that is the procedure, I guess, they embarked upon. But I have been receiving several complaints from many of the nurses, and the nurses have indicated in many instances they have not received their ballot paper. If you haven't received your ballot paper, it means you can't vote. Secondly, many of the nursing personnel have reported to me that they have received a ballot, but the ballot has the wrong title. In other words, someone who's a staff nurse would have received a ballot for a midwife or an enrolled nursing assistant, God forbid.
And you can't vote with
and
that.
You can't vote because that is not the category that you're correctly in. And therefore, it is a litany of woes that clearly has come forward. And we are not hearing anything from the Nursing Council, officially or otherwise. I am not even aware what is the status of the elections. Via social media, I have been told by other persons that it has been cancelled.
Wow.
But I am saying that the Nursing Council and the election committee ought to be addressing the national community, and particularly nursing personnel. There are thousands of nurses, probably over 10,000 or so nurses throughout Trinidad and Tobago. And they should be addressing them, because this issue continues to be a vexatious one. Because persons are starved for information. They don't know what is the status of the elections, and they are simply saying to the nursing council, or saying to each other at least, what is going on.
Yeah.
So, you know, I am thankful for the platform and the opportunity to come here to even speak to those persons who I haven't had the opportunity to speak to, because I know the PSA media, you know, it reaches thousands of public officers throughout Trinidad and Tobago and internationally as well. So we are asking these questions on behalf of our members, on behalf of nursing personnel. What really is taking place? What is really going on here?
For those of the viewing audience who may not know what are some of the roles the nursing council provides, could you just enlighten us?
Sure. I started off by speaking of those type of, and it's really important, because if it is you were to have an unfortunate or an unpleasant interaction with a nurse, and you were to make a complaint, the nursing council is the body that is responsible for adjudicating upon that matter, and they have the authority based on the act to actually revoke your license, which means you cannot work
forthwith, or
yes, they can forthwith, and therefore you will not be able to work in any government institution, because that license and enrollment is extremely important. And nursing personnel of ourselves, we need to understand the importance of voting in this election whenever, if ever, it occurs. Because this is your opportunity to really select persons to make representation on your behalf, where the professional development of nursing is concerned. And most persons throughout Trinidad and Tobago must have some interaction with Trinidad and Tobago's hospitals. I mean, most persons may find it is an unfortunate experience, but at the end of the day, if it is you cannot afford private institution, you have to subject yourself to the public institutions. And therefore, the nursing personnel who are there must be persons who are qualified, and this is really what the nursing council seeks to do. It ensures that persons are qualified to perform the tasks that they will be required to do, and that their professional deportment and behavior is of such that is acceptable to the nursing council, and that is what they choose. They actually manage the entire fraternity. So therefore, it is incumbent upon us as members of the PSA especially, and of course nursing personnel throughout Trinidad and Tobago, for us to apply ourselves and to get involved. If it is you don't get involved in your affairs, then you are subject to whatever decisions are made.
I just want to stick a pin in there.
Sure.
I know we are stepping over time.
Oh, right.
So I just want to ask you your closing comments.
Sure. Well, I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Coover once again for the opportunity to sit before the PSA's membership. And I would like all nursing personnel to begin agitating from the perspective of finding out what is taking place in terms of the nursing council's election. And whenever the issues are addressed, that they do come out and vote. Vote wisely, to ensure.
Before you go, what do you bring to the table?
Sure. Well, I bring years of experience of being a representative of nursing personnel. One of the areas we intend to improve is the advancement of training for enrolled nursing assistants, more training programs. I am seeking to unify that group of persons so that we can address issues collectively. Issues such as I said before, what courses they would like to proceed on. If it is because they have indicated to me that they would like an easier process towards becoming registered nurses and so forth. So we have a wealth of ideas that we would like to place on the board, but at the end of the day, our role will be in the nursing council to provide information, timely information, so that the members would know what is taking place and that they could give me the guidance as in what they would want to have me address at the level of the nursing council.
And now these things can't be executed without proper communication from the council itself.
Yes,
so
and a proper process.
Yeah, so I do hope that soon enough, sooner rather than later, that something is communicated to you, or at least you know when the elections will be
what
held.
are the terms of engagement
Yeah.
and so forth. Yes, definitely.
And at least be aware of, you know, what is happening with the body itself.
Yes, it is. Very important.
Yeah.